Hey guys, DIY Maniac here with another video. This video is going to be on the removal and replacement of a front wheel bearing on a 2008 Chevrolet Cobalt LT. So this video is pretty much universal to any Cobalt or Pontiac G5 of the generations. Basically, that is non-ABS. This car does not have ABS. For the ABS model, there's a couple of extra steps because you're going to have the wiring for the ABS sensor, speed sensor. On this car, you don't have it. So I'd first like to give a little background. I actually changed both wheel bearings last year. At the time, they were the original ones. They had about 110,000 kilometers on them, and they were starting to go. So I went to Rock Auto and bought Raybestos professional grade replacement bearings. And unfortunately, a year later, and maybe about 15 to 18,000 kilometers later, one of them failed. Unfortunately, because I was past the 12-month warranty, there was nothing Raybestos could do for me or Rock Auto, and I was stuck having to replace it again. So this time I went with a higher quality, a Moog wheel bearing, which comes with a 3-year guarantee and is a much superior part. It's roughly about $30 to $40 more Canadian. So it's not too much, and I probably should have went that direction in the first place, but Raybestos does have a pretty good name. But in this case, things do happen, and it's unfortunate. So I'd first like to show you guys how I go about basically diagnosing a bad wheel bearing. First, obviously, is noise. You're going to hear it, that particular humming noise that a wheel bearing gives off. Now, the older technique on the older style bearings was you could grab the tire on top and bottom and give it a wiggle, or side to side. I would usually do it at the, I guess that'd be 10 and 4, and I give it a wiggle, and you would get some play in it. On the newer style bearings, you don't get that too much. You don't get too much play on it. So the way I like to do it when wanting to figure out which side is, I'll take my hand and put it on the spring, on the coil of the suspension, and I'll spin the tire with the other hand. And basically you're going to feel it. Well, right now we can hear it because the bearing's that bad, but also in the spring, you're going to feel the vibration of the bad bearing. When you have a good bearing and you do this, you will feel nothing in the spring. There will be no feeling of vibration or grinding. Unfortunately, you guys can't feel it because you're watching on your computers, but it's there. As I spin the wheel, I could feel the vibration and grinding in my hand. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go through the whole process with you guys. Right now I got the car jacked up because I wanted to show you that technique of how to figure out which side of the car the bearing has failed. But I'm going to bring the car back down, not completely, but letting the wheel touch the ground so I could take off the main axle nut. I could do it up in the air, but it's a lot easier having it down so that the tire doesn't spin on you. I'm going to be using my impact gun to get this done. So I'm going to get the tools ready, and then I'll be right back with you on that step. Okay, so now that we're back, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the wheel cover. So you're going to use your 19mm socket to remove the wheel cover. So we're going to loosen up the 4 caps that cover the lug nuts. And we're going to take the wheel cover off, thus exposing the lug nuts and our main axle nut. So I'm just going to go get the socket that I'm going to need, because unfortunately I wasn't too prepared, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have the sockets. The socket I'm using is a 30mm. It fits pretty good. So we're going to take our impact, make sure it's in reverse, make sure the sockets fit snugly on. Like I said, the wheel is touching, but majority of the weight still is on the floor jack, and we're going to go and remove that center nut. And the center nut is off. Sorry about that, just had to take off my air compressor because that would be very annoying if you had to hear that the whole time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to loosen up the lug nuts. So you're going to be taking your 19mm impact socket and putting that on your impact gun. Of course, if you don't have an impact gun, it could be done for the axle nut, it could still be done. You're just going to have a pretty big breaker bar. They are torqued on there pretty high. I'll be going over the torque specs with you guys upon reassembly. So we'll remove the lug nuts. Remember always to go in a cross pattern. Fortunately, my air compressor is off, so I'm now going low on pressure, but we should be able to get the last one off. I'm just going to get the car up a bit. There we go, and we'll remove the last one. And we'll put those aside. And now we can take our tire off, thus exposing everything on the inside. And there we go. So I'll just stop the video here and I'll be right back. Okay guys, one important fact, always use a jack stand, an axle stand. Never rely on your jack completely. I've heard and seen and have experienced very close calls because of only relying on a jack. So I use the jack stand up front and make sure the weight of the car is on it. Now, what I like to do when doing this particular job is I will not dismantle the brakes completely. I'm going to leave the caliper in place on the bracket and remove the bracket and calipers one whole assembly and hang it up out of the way. So for that, you're going to be using a 15mm socket, which is the size of your caliper bracket bolts. I'm just going to have to get a 3/4 extension. So we'll get our extension on. We'll make sure we're going counterclockwise for loosening, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, as they say. And we're going to remove our bolts. So they'll be on there a little tight, so you just have to work them. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those 2 bolts, and we're going to pick up right there. Okay guys, so the caliper is now off with the mounting bracket. So the 2 15mm bolts were removed. What I like to do is use a bungee cord and attach, hang basically the caliper from the coil spring. So if it does fall, you're not putting any strain on the brake line. So now you can go ahead and remove your brake disc as it comes right off. And we'll put that aside. So now what we're looking at is the bearing. And you're now going to want to go in from behind. There are 3 mounting bolts for the bearing. They're all 15mm. So you're going to go ahead and remove those 3. They are on there tight enough. Same as the caliper bracket mounts. They're torqued at 85 foot-pounds. So a 3/4 inch ratchet will definitely get it off. If you're having some trouble, go ahead and get yourself a breaker bar to remove those. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those bolts. Just a piece of advice. To get at all of them, you're going to have to turn the wheel. So turn the wheel basically all the way to the right to get 2 of them on the front side, and then turn it all the way to the left. And that way you'll be able to get the 3rd one that's on the outside. That's the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, the CV joint gets in your way as well as the knuckle. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those 3, and then we'll pick up where I'll start removing the hub assembly. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, so the 3 mounting bolts for the hub assembly have been removed. I've now put in the steering wheel straight. So what we're going to want to do is with a hammer, we're going to want to hit the back side of the hub on the wheel flange. We're going to be hitting it evenly on each side to bring it out. Now, what you're going to want to be careful is as you do that, it's going to sometimes want to jam on the axle, on the spline shaft of the axle. But you're going to want to do this very gently. You're going to tap the axle to help push it back through the hub. If you hit it way too hard or just enough hardness, what can happen is you can mushroom out the end of the axle where the threads are, and you'll never get that axle nut back on again. So you want to be very careful. The other thing to note is you do have a washer inside here. Just I haven't been able to get it out because it's stuck in there. So as the hub assembly comes off, the washer is going to fall off, and that goes in behind your axle nut. So you want to make sure to pick that up and put it aside. So what we do is we'll take our hammer from behind and we'll give it a tap. You can already see it starting to separate. Now I'm not going to lie to you. If this is the first time you're doing it and you have a lot of mileage on the car, it's not going to come off this easily. It's coming off easily for me because I changed it just a year ago, as well as I put some anti-seize on the hub surface itself where it gets into the knuckle. So that's why it's going to be coming off easy for me. For you guys, it might be a little bit harder the first time. Because you're changing the bearing anyways, there's not too much worry of damage to the bearing. Go ahead with a big dead blow hammer. If you have like a 5-pound sledge, go at it. Just be very careful around the CV joint, around the tie rods, just around any component you don't want it to damage. So take your time, be gentle, but forceful, because you're going to want to get it off. So I'm going to keep hitting it. And then, like I said, very gently, we're going to be tapping the axle. As you can see, I'm pushing it back in very gently. And now our hub is loose. And we're going to, once again, very gently. What we could even do is use a rubber mallet for that purpose. And put it through. And as we can see, our hub is now coming right off. Here's a back spacer that goes in behind. So we'll keep that to the side. There's our washer that we took out. So we'll put that with our axle nut. I also put anti-seize on the splines of the axle where it goes into the spline section of the hub. Once again, even easier again for me to remove it when I had to. I guess I was thinking ahead. I never have much confidence in parts. I know I'm probably going to have to change them again. So I make it so next time I do have to remove it, it's going to be easy. So that's what we got there. So now our next step, in this case, I'm going to be cleaning it up with a wire brush, cleaning up inside. Around as long as the mating surfaces, clean up any rust on the threads of the axle, on the splines, and just give it a general cleaning. I have the new bearing assembly here, hub bearing assembly, as you can see, brand new. So that's going to get inserted. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the surfaces, put some anti-seize, and then we'll continue the video off right there. So I will be right back. Okay guys, I am back. So I cleaned up the surfaces. I put a little bit of anti-seize on the hub as well. As you can see here, I put it around the hub where it gets inserted into the knuckle, as well as on the flange. So we're going to go put it back into place. Let's not forget our metal spacer here. We're going to make sure it lines up. We're going to put our axle into the bearing, wiggle it so the splines wind up, and we're going to push it in. And our axle comes on through. It takes a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of playing to get all the holes to line up, but it's not too bad. You'll get it going good once you can get your bolts started. So I'm going to stop the video here so I can get those 3 mounting bolts in. What I like to touch upon on those is you're going to want to put a little bit of anti-seize on their threads as well. That doesn't hurt, just a little bit. You're going to put those in. You're going to tighten them up evenly. So basically you're pulling the bearing in straight. You're not tightening up one only at a time and it's coming in crooked. Tighten it up, go to the next one, tighten, next one, tighten. Keep working in a circle until the the mating surface is up against the steering knuckle flush. And then you're going to do a final torque of 85 foot-pounds. Very important. If you don't have a torque wrench, get one. If you're going to be doing auto mechanics, even if you're just changing tires, get a torque wrench. They're not expensive and they're a very valuable tool in the garage. So I'm going to go ahead with that and then we'll pick up after that. Okay guys, so the 3 hub mounting bolts are put in and torqued to 85 foot-pounds. Now we're going to want to put the main axle nut on. As I stated, washer first, put a little anti-seize on the threads, put your washer in, take your axle nut, and this is going to be torqued at 155 foot-pounds. I usually start it, I'll just take my breaker bar to get her snugged up, and I'll bring her in until we start getting some resistance, and then we're going to put the torque wrench on her to torque it up. So tighten her. This will also pull the axle all the way through, make sure it's fully seated in the splines. So we'll continue that way. Like that. Now the best way to do your final torque is at the end, once the tire is on. Because when you try to torque it now, you're not going to really be able to because it's just going to want to spin on you. So we'll get her nice and snugged up by hand. Then we're going to put the brakes back on. Then we're going to put the tire on. And then we'll let, like we did when we loosened it, just let the tire slightly touch the ground so it doesn't want to spin. And then we'll do our final torque on this nut. So I'll just snug her up by hand, get her there, and that's as far as I'm going to go by hand. So now what we're going to want to do is put our brake caliper and bracket back into place. So it's just the reverse of removal. Our 2 15mm bolts are going to go in from in behind the knuckle through the mounting bracket. Those are going to be torqued at 85 foot-pounds as well. Make sure, once again, these are brake components, torque them to spec. So I'm going to get that done and then we'll come right back. Okay guys, so the brakes are reassembled, the wheel is on. So now we're going to go ahead and do the final torque on the axle nut. Once again, 155 foot-pounds is needed on that. So we're going to take it, we're going to have to put our extension, and we're going to go ahead and torque it on. Now this one's going to have to put some weight behind it, because it is, I hope I'm not blocking the camera. See, my wheel is not touching the ground enough, so I'm just spinning my wheel. So I'm going to lower the car a bit more, put a little more weight on the wheel, and we're going to go ahead and do our final torque. And there's 155. Torque wrench clicks. We're good on that. Now we're going to want to go ahead and do the final torque on our lug nuts, anywhere from 80 to 90 foot-pounds for steel wheels. And that's pretty much it. I didn't go too much into detail as far as showing you guys me taking the brakes off and all the, I made pauses in the video because, I mean, if you're tackling this job, you probably already got a good understanding of how to take the brakes off. If you don't, there's many good videos out there that will show you. I just wanted to show you the main fundamentals of changing the bearing. So that's the video for today. So please leave any comments if you have any questions. Please like the video, subscribe as usual, and once again, this is the installation of a front wheel bearing on a 2008 but applicable for 2005 to 2010 Chevy Cobalt Pontiac G5 with non-ABS. Thank you very much.